In my last video, I said something about the fact that I really dream of having some sort of larger control surface in my studio, and as it turns out, that day came much sooner than I expected, as I'm now able to feast my eyes on the Softube Console 1 Mark III. I've gone back and forth trying to decide what specific control surface, even what type of control surface I wanted/needed in the studio. Behringer X-Touch was a top contender for a long time just because of how affordable it is, and it can still do so many things. I considered the SSL ecosystem with the UC1, the UF1, and the UF8. That would be premium, but it would also come at a premium cost. But then I started to entertain the idea of the Softube Console 1 line, which is less expensive, I believe, than the SSLs, more expensive than the Behringer stuff. I really wanted a controller that was responsive and reacted to what was going on inside of the DAW, and I really fell in love with the one-to-one controls of my Yamaha CP73 keyboard. I really wanted to just reach for a control, make the adjustment, and call it good. And from what I can tell, the Console 1 does this really well. By the way, Softube didn't send this to me. I bought this with my own money, and I'm really excited to get into it. If you want to check out Console 1 for yourself, there is an affiliate link down in the description. It's also a great way to support this channel. So the way this works is that you take the Console 1 plugin and load it onto each channel in your DAW. And then you can turn any or all these effects on, or load up a different supported plugin and adjust from there. So the first section here is the input section, which is pretty straightforward. You have your input gain, and then high cut, low cut. Next we have the shape section, which is actually a dual section, like a few of these. So basically you can have two different effects here, and you could just toggle between which one you want to control, but both of them can be active at the same time. Next we have the EQ section, which is just really cool that you have all of this hands-on control available to you, even for an EQ. Again, you can have two different EQs going at the same time and toggle between which one you want to control. This is cool because you could load up like a vintage EQ and then a more modern EQ, or however you want to configure it. Next we have the dual compressor section. Pretty straightforward. I like that you can hold shift and adjust stuff like the makeup gain or the wet-dry mix. We have a drive section, which is pretty straightforward, and then the character of that drive. And then the buttons over here select what exactly this red volume knob does. So these three buttons actually can control up to 6 sends in your DAW, which is really cool. So you could just click whichever one you want and then adjust the send level, dial it in however you want to. Pretty cool. Then you have your main out volume, which is basically going to control the output of this channel strip plugin. Then when you press the volume button, that's actually going to control the fader in your DAW, which is pretty cool. From there you can solo and mute within your DAW. You can change the pan, and because these are touch sensitive, you can actually double tap to go back to Unity if you want. These buttons up here represent the different tracks in your DAW. You can even see that the little colored light matches the color of the track in my DAW, which is a cool touch. And also the Console 1 seems to follow whatever track you have selected in Logic. It's also cool to see that even channels that you don't have the plugin loaded up on, you can control the sends, the fader volume, solo, mute, and pan just without doing anything. Everything feels extremely responsive. There's even a bit of resistance as you turn the encoders. The screens are very clear and easy to see, and you can have them on specific views or have them set to adaptive, which is what I like to stick with. And there is an on-screen software that helps to visualize everything even more. It is great, but these screens do a lot, and the touch controls are really responsive. So whatever parameter you adjust, it follows along seamlessly. Getting around this thing just seems to make sense. If you want to load up a channel strip, you can do so. If I just want to replace a section and Frankenstein my own channel strip, that's super easy to do. And one thing that really surprised me about this was its support for universal audio plugins. I have this free Verve Drive plugin that I got from UA at some point that is available on here. It shows what you're doing on the unit and on the screen, which is really cool. I also have a couple of channel strips and compressors that came bundled with the SD1 when I bought it, and so all of that is available to me and I don't have to do any kind of like mapping to get it to work. Another thing that's cool about this unit is it has 2 built-in USB-C ports, and you can use this in a couple of different ways. You can either power this directly from your computer and use the other port to connect a different USB device, or you can use the other port to run power so the computer is not having to do the heavy lifting there. Right now, I'm connected to my computer using a low-end USB hub, and then using the other port to run my power supply. If I wanted to plug in something real fast, I could unplug the power supply and it would all stay on, but it would show that I'm in low power mode, and as far as I can tell, that just means that the lights get a little bit dimmer. But in this lighting, it still looks really good. I'm also noticing that while everything is really easy to see, it's slightly easier to see if I tilt this up a little bit. So I don't know if I'll try to find something to kind of stuff under the back end or build a stand for it, or maybe I'll just keep it like this. It's really great as is. It has a slight tilt to it anyways. We'll see. So I mentioned before that I really wanted hands-on control, and I also wanted whatever I got to be really responsive. I have quite a bit of rack space built into my desk, so naturally outboard gear came to mind. But the problem with outboard gear is I'm very spoiled to the digital world and can't really imagine my life without Recall. I've used Logic Remote for iPad as a sort of controller for a while now. It's really great for automating faders and tracking from different parts of the room, but it's not tactile like a hardware controller. So I think this really elevates just the feel and the experience for me. Overall, I'm really excited and have high hopes for the Console 1 in my studio. Maybe one day I'll get the Fader Mark III. Who knows when that'll be? A man can dream. I plan on doing a more in-depth look and review of the Console 1 when I get more familiar with it and integrate it into my workflow. So if you have any questions for that video, or maybe things you'd like to see, let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you got any value out of this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more videos like this one. As always, thanks for hanging out.